2023 was a great year for films and also a bad year for films, as we saw some absolute great movies and some absolute bad movies, and here we are ready to rank as the year's closed now. And you might be like, well, it has been a few days since the year's closed. It has, but I haven't had time. So now we have time to go over every single movie in this ranking video, so without further ado, I think we should just get straight into it. So we're obviously going to start off with Thanksgiving, which, for those who haven't seen it, it's a good horror movie. If you have not seen I Know He Did Last Summer, if not, then it is practically identical. So I'm going to warn you, if you have seen I Know He Did Last Summer, it's basically I Know What You Did Last Thanksgiving. But I think it was a good movie. I don't think we're talking best movie of 2023 or 2023 classic, to be honest. Some people might say it's underrated, but in my opinion, this belongs in good. I do like this movie, like I said, and if you've never seen I Know He Did Last Summer, I think you would really enjoy this movie. It's sort of like somebody who's coming into this movie a bit like not knowing what to expect, and you've never seen many horror movies before, you'd probably absolutely love the shit out of this movie, because it feels like a gruesome version of I Know He Did Last Summer, more brutal than that one, if that makes a lot of sense. Next up would be Fast X. To me, Fast X is an interesting one, because I feel this one has copped a lot of hate, and I don't want to say I don't get why, because I totally get why. Because they've had too many sequels, and the actors now that are in there aren't as talented as they once were. So I would probably put Fast X in the category of, it's not as bad as people say it is, and I actually personally enjoyed this movie, but should Fast X be making movies still? Sorry, should Fast and Furious still be making movies? No, they fucking shouldn't be. So to me, I have to rank it in where I believe the movie lands, in which, to me, is technically underrated from where people say it is, but at the same time, I would probably argue that since people have hated on it that much, I would have probably put it in good. But since people have really hated this one, not for no particular reason, because I get the reason of there's too many sequels, but I think that it gets too much hate at times. I think it was a good movie, but I just think people on the back of Fast 9 and Fast 8 really hate on this movie for I'm not saying for whatever reason, because they were terrible, but you know what I mean? I think this one did deliver and put a lot of hype around the part 2. If it does deliver on that, then fair enough. But if it doesn't, then this one will be brought back into action, because I felt that it built upon something. But you know, this is just my opinion, underrated or not. I think if it weren't hated as much, I'd probably put it in good. But I think it does a decent job in that underrated category, in my opinion. Next up, Creed 3. Now, for a lot of people that haven't watched my channel before, or you're just getting introduced to it, you'll know that I released a video on Creed 3, and a lot of people disagreed with my opinions on that one. I thoroughly believed this was quite a weak movie, simply for the fact that I think it was a good movie, but in terms of where the Creed and Rocky franchise are, the heights are unreachable at times and are on a different fucking level. So when I turn around and say that it's not as good as Creed 2 or Creed 1 or even any of the Rocky movies, maybe apart from Rocky 5, I think you'll get where I'm coming from, because I think Creed 3, for me, apart from Jonathan Majors in that movie, I don't believe it delivered. And not to have Rocky in there or really an explanation to where it was or anything like that, I think didn't really work. And the fact that he's coming out of retirement, even though we've only seen 2 movies with him actually being a boxer, he never really had that come off that Rocky 4 had for Rocky, where he was undefeatable, he looked like an absolute machine, he looked like the world champion of the world, whereas this time, I don't really feel that they built that up at all. So it didn't really work in my eyes. However, I do think it worked as a good boxing movie, and there weren't anything like this year. So I would probably say that it would probably have to go in good. There's an argument for me to put it in average, but if I'm being real, it's not underrated. But I do believe it delivers at being a good boxing movie, but I do prefer the rest of the Creeds and most of the Rocky movies apart from Rocky 5 and maybe Balboa. So I think that out of the expectations, it didn't deliver on the expectation, in my opinion. It did for many others, but I think that it was dragged through by the villains, maybe a bit by the story. I think there was some good emotional stuff in there, but I think that it was really lacking something to be a proper classic of 2023. Our community is growing day by day and has for the past few years, and all you can do to continue that growth is hit that like button and hit that subscribe button, as that would go a long way into helping our channel continue our growth and to put out more videos for you guys and to put out better quality videos for you guys. Just by hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, you could do us a massive favor, completely free. And we should get back to the video because I don't want you to miss a thing moving forward. So on Insidious, which is next up, Insidious the Red Door, I feel this was a great way to bring back this iconic franchise, and people will know this from the first movie, full of jump scares and everything like that. This one had a lot of good jump scares in it, don't get me wrong, and to me this is something that uses jump scares well and effectively. It is a cheap thrill, I get it, but you expect it from Insidious. For whatever reason, you can put it behind you and go, we expect it from probably like the Conjuring universe and Insidious, and it works most of the time. In certain movies it doesn't, but in these, yeah, it normally works. To me, I think this put some fame back on Insidious, and I think I haven't heard any good or bad reviews from Insidious, the Red Door. However, in my opinion, it helped bring back what I enjoyed about Insidious and what I think this movie brings, and that is entertainment and different type of horror movie to many others. And to have it be about Patrick Wilson's character trying to remember something that he has forgotten, and his son as well, drawing demons and possessed shit, and they don't know why, and then they're finding out that their memories were wiped and things like that, and that was interesting, and I love that. And it helps to wrap up a few loops that you didn't really know were loops and things like that, and so I thought that was really interesting. To me, I'd probably put this either in good or underrated. If there was a category in the middle, I'd probably put it somewhere there, but since there isn't, I'd probably put it on good. Next up, Meg 2. For me, Meg 2 was a good movie. I like this movie. I think it delivered on my expectations, and I didn't think walking into this movie that it was going to be a bad film. I think as a sequel's go, this made sense to do another sequel because the franchise hadn't really got going or died out yet. I think the first one really showed us a glimpse of what the Meg was all about and why it was somehow different to Jaws, but at the same time not massively different from Jaws. I think it took a lot of inspiration from that film and many other shark movies, and so I think that the second one really helped to, you know, bring back what I like to see from a shark movie. And from entertainment factors, I was entertained. Yeah, as stories go, it's not the most thrilling story. It is pretty beige, going down into the trench and shit. And the whole reason why the shark is back is a bit dubious, but you know, you're all there for the thrill and the action, and it worked, in my opinion. And you had a big fucking octopus in there, so the big kraken in there as well. So I think as fights go as well, having the megalodon versus a fucking kraken, yeah, why not? So I think I would probably put this in good because of the sequel was good, and I don't think it tarnished the original. I don't think it might. There's an argument to be held whether it's better than the original or not. I think the original's a little bit better. Next up, Saw X. For me, Saw X was not necessary at all. However, I didn't know where this was going to go simply for the fact you turn around and it's a bit like Fast X where you go, was it needed? No, it weren't needed. Was, I don't know, fucking Scream 6 needed? No, it weren't. But there's something about that movie that made a lot of sense once you watched it and gone, actually, that makes a lot of sense why he couldn't find somebody to get a cure or to whatever, and he obviously was looking options, and this was one of the options that he faced of trying to find a cure and things, and the reason why he never got that treatment that we thought he were going to get, yeah, that tricked him into thinking he'd had treatment, life-saving treatment, and in fact they just cut his head open a little bit, put a bandage over his head, and that was fucking it. And to me, I think Saw X for me is a good quality movie. I think you know what you're going to get with it. Violence, horror, gore. I think it delivers in all that retrospect. So for me, I won't put it in underrated. I'd put that as a good sequel. You knew what to expect walking into Saw X. Next up is the Songbird and Snake's Hunger Games movie, in which, to me, I liked it as a prequel. And again, I'll turn around and say this, and I know we've gone through a few sequels and I've actually said positive things about them, but as a prequel goes, I think this is what I want from a prequel. Think walking into it, not knowing what you're going to get, and being absolutely astounded by what you when you watch this film. For me, I think there's an argument to be held for it good. It's not a classic, and I don't think it should be a classic, but I think underrated, it's a definitely hard decision between underrated and good, because I didn't realise it was going to go that deep into snow. However, them going that deep into snow made a lot of fucking sense, as that is something like a Voldemort in Harry Potter, which we've never really seen the backstory why he was so evil. This time, Hunger Games went, no, fuck that, we're going to explore his past, and that was exceptionally good. And probably, if it weren't for that storyline, I think the film would have absolutely fucking bombed, let's be right. However, that storyline sort of person Snow was to how he then later becomes was very fucking intriguing to me. So I would probably, there's an argument to be held whether it should be good or underrated. I'm going to put this in good, but I haven't really seen many bad words said about it. If you hate this movie, let me know down in the comments down below, but for me, I think it belongs in good. Up next is Gran Turismo. For me, if you watch one of my latest videos, should I say, about movies in 2023, I mentioned how this was a good movie, and some people weren't happy about that. But for me, I enjoyed Gran Turismo. Do you know why? Because I didn't expect it being as good as it was. In my opinion, I haven't seen other movies similar to this, and I think as a sporting movie, I watched the trailer and thought, should I go see it? Should I not? Could it be crap? Could it be good? And then I went, no what, let's go see it. And I was astounded how good this was, and that's why I'm going to put it in underrated, because I don't think Gran Turismo will get the rating that it deserves, as it is a good quality movie, emotionally driven, based on a true story. Not everything is true, don't get me wrong. They will have made it more emotionalized for the sake of movie purposes and cinema purposes. One would be Wonka. As a prequel, I thought this delivered, and I didn't expect it to. Like a cheesy British movie that we've seen 100 times. However, it sort of worked at that, because it wasn't hilariously funny, but it was funny in parts. It had good kid humour. It felt like a great family movie, family-oriented movie, and was a musical as well. I'm not a massive fan of musicals, but it worked. Everything just worked. And that's why I'm not going to put it as an average, because it's not an average film, because I think everybody who watches this, similar to the original Willy Wonka, I'm not saying it's better than the original Willy Wonka, by the way, and if you haven't seen our Willy Wonka comparison video, go and watch that now. That's in the description down below, where we compare Tim Burton's Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder's, and obviously Timothy Chalamet's as well. But no, I think that this Wonka is a family-oriented movie and a musical that isn't as good as the original, but is able to match the same intensity and the same family feel that one does, hence why I'm going to put that in good. Now, this next one is going to cause a bit of an uproar, and please do not exit this video soon as you see where I'm going to put this, because Ant-Man and the Wasp: QUANTUMANIA for me is, I'm going to say it, is underrated. It is underrated, and I'll tell you why. Because to me, people hate on this like it's the worst film they've ever seen. Like, but shut the fuck up, right? I'll tell you why I think this should be in underrated. Because it's entertainment. I watch movies for entertainment factors, and if I enjoy a movie, then fucking that's the whole point of watching a movie. You able to sit down and enjoy it. I don't care about the fucking if the graphics don't look great and all this and all that. The villain was perfect, the best villain in the Ant-Man franchise, and I'll probably be on my own saying this, that Ant-Man Quantumania is a good movie and a very underrated movie. I'm not saying it's a classic by any stretch of the imagination, but I enjoy this movie. In my opinion, I think that this was not the best MCU movie of the year, which we'll get onto the best MCU movie of the year later on. However, I do feel it offered a lot of entertainment, comedy. I don't think it worked very well in turning Darren into MODOK for many people, but I sort of enjoyed it, and it made a lot of sense to me to do that, and the whole story arc around it. And I've watched it since coming out of the cinema, so it's not just like, oh, he's made a mind up and then he's sticking with it. No, I've watched it since and I still agree with it. It's entertaining. To me, the next one, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning 1, Part 1. I think this, for me anyways, was probably in either average or poor. And I'm not a massive fan of Mission Impossible at all as a franchise. I like the first two, going on the third one. Third one could have been a little bit better. But apart from that, I'm not a big fan of the franchise, gonna admit. I don't really see much entertainment in those movies. That's just my opinion. I just don't think they're very story driven. I just think they're just full of stunts that don't really make much sense half the time. And I do think this is one of those franchises that has gone too far, and I don't really get how it's gotten to the stage of the 10th fucking film, or I don't know which one that is, Dead Reckoning. I don't know if it's about the 8th film, 7th, who fuck knows. We've run out of how many movies there are in the Mission Impossible, hence why I'm going to put this in average, because there were some good stunts in there, and I do think that Hayley Atwell as a actress was phenomenal in this movie, and she carried this movie. Fuck Tom Cruise, Hayley Atwell was fan-fucking-tastic. So I think that deserves to be an average for that particular reason, in my opinion. Next up would have to be the Marvels, and to me, there is easily an argument for both average and poor. I think this, for me, is the weakest MCU movie of the year. I think, yeah, I would probably say that's the weakest MCU movie of the year. And we'll probably get a lot of hatred, and rightly so, from a lot of people. For me, I don't think it's the worst film I've ever seen, so it's not one of the worst movies of all time. It's not necessarily poor and terrible, because I could see what they were trying to do, and they executed it to some extent. So I'd have to put this on average, because entertainment value, it was okay. It did get a bit silly, let's be honest, it did get a bit silly. But, and this was one of the reasons why you turn around and say, has the MCU gone too far? That is a conversation for another day. But I feel that it is an average because it just dragged itself through the mud. Probably from the chemistry between the three, probably might have just bumped up a little bit. But yeah, as a whole, a bit tame, let's be honest. Next up is the SHAZAM 2 movie, in which Fury of the Gods. To me, I didn't watch this in cinemas, I watched this after cinemas, so in 2023 I counted this in with the rest of the 2023 lot because it was a 2023 movie and I did watch it in 2023. And to me, I felt this is an average movie, simply for the fact that it was nowhere near as good as the first one, and I really liked the first SHAZAM movie. I really did. Funny, comedic, didn't really see like a silly superhero really making it crack, that doesn't really take anything serious, and he's basically living in he's basically a child living in a man's body, basically like Big, if you've ever seen the film Big, but as a superhero, which was fucking great. But this one, forgettable, uninteresting, quite boring, gonna be honest, but I would put it in average because I can't remember it being overall terrible and anything absolutely outrageous in there. I just remember it being average superhero movie, not really anything special. Next up, Expendables 4. A lot of people will be doing the same as me by putting it in poor and terrible or average. To me, there's an argument for poor and terrible. And the thing is, because I think this was carried by two people, Jason Statham and Megan Fox. Those two people were the only two that actually fucking shown up in this movie. The rest of them were just names. And to me, I mentioned that in my review. If you haven't seen that, that's down in the description also. This was a fucking weak sequel, and a sequel that nobody asked for, and is a money grab at fucking best. And to me, that's either got to go in average or poor terrible, because it was predictable as shit. It was so predictable, and I'm really debating putting it in poor and terrible because it was poor. You could see what they tried to do, but you knew Stallone was going to come back again. Yeah, poor and terrible in my opinion. I've got to start putting some in poor and terrible. I've been easier on the Marvels and even SHAZAM to an extent, but that one, belongs in poor and terrible, because as the sequel goes, it wasn't needed by any retrospect, because you knew there was monetary value in another Ant-Man movie, you knew there was monetary value in a Creed 3, you knew there was monetary value in a Mission Impossible. There was no monetary value in Expendables 4 apart from putting more big names into a movie and hoping that people go watch it. Yeah, suck dick, let's be honest. Next up, Exorcist Believer. Normally I would think about maybe putting this in underrated because this has gotten a lot of hate, but at the same time I think this was just good. I mean, would I go back and watch it again? Yeah, wouldn't be my first horror movie pick, but I think it just did enough to warrant the Exorcist name. I think the original is clearly better, but at the end of the day, it weren't a sequel I've ever seen. It weren't average. It was just good. It was just, yeah, I'll watch it. Yeah, cool. There was nothing unfucking imaginable in there, something terrible in there. There was nothing like that. It was just, you know what, this is a good movie. Yeah, I walked out of the cinema going, yeah, that was alright, pretty good. So yeah, unlike The Nun 2, which we're going to get onto right now, in which, I'm going to be honest, it's either average or poor. And I'm going to put it in poor. To me, when I went to go see this, my expectations for this movie was very low, and I still don't really know why I went to go see it, simply for the fact that it was linked to the Conjuring universe, and I think that was the only reason why. This is a franchise that has gone on way too long now. I think the only marketing tool that they have in the Conjuring universe now is The Conjuring and Annabelle. Apart from that, nobody gives a shit about this franchise no more. So, and I think from The Nun was predicted, I remember at the time, one of the biggest horror movies of all time. You got to go watch it, and when everyone went to go see it, it was shit. And you've got to go see this film, and it was shit. And even now, watching the second film, the cinema was practically empty. I remember it. Going to see The Nun 2, and it was still a bit like predictable shit. Yeah, that's what that was, in my opinion. Probably weren't the worst movie of the year, but it is definitely a contender for that, because I think this next one is the worst movie of the year in my particular opinion, which was The Boogeyman. For those that haven't seen The Boogeyman, it's nothing fucking special. I wouldn't say it's the worst movie of all time though. I would say it's the worst movie of the year, not the worst movie of all time, so I would probably have to put this on the same category as Nun 2, but if I had to rank them in terms of, if I was doing a top 10 worst, this one would be the top 10 worst movie of the year in my opinion. And that is simply for the fact that it was just bang fucking average. You could see what they tried to do, but it weren't entertaining, it was boring, you could see the writing on the fucking wall. Yeah, I still know why I went to go see this one. I think it was just a gap fill in the month, and I had my unlimited pass and thought, oh, we can go watch this, and it was fucking garbage. So I would probably put that in poor and terrible, because it was just, yeah, there's bang average, then there's really simple, and a kid could have written it. That's what The Boogeyman was. To me, Pet Sematary, Bloodlines, I watched this on Paramount Plus, and I thought, know what, are they actually making another fucking Pet Sematary? And then I realised, yes they fucking are, because they can't leave shit alone. And Paramount made another poor fucking sequel. To me, this one's one of those movies for me where the idea, the principle, and the first 15-20 minutes was really entertaining. But then they lost control and went, and then the movie just falls to bits. I personally believe they've done all they can with Pet Sematary. Don't know why they did another. I think the original Pet Sematary 1 and 2 are the best. The remakes and this one is poor. I think that it didn't deliver anything that we haven't seen before. Very forgettable. Very poor, terrible sequel. It started off well, but then just folded like a cheap Snakes and Ladders board, let's be honest. The next one, speaking of a fucking money grab, is Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. For those that haven't seen it, this is maybe one of the worst sequels of the year. And there's an argument for being average, because I do remember parts of it still from the cinema. So I would probably put this poor and terrible again. I think that this one for me was weak, very weak. And this was one of the, out of 2 movies this year, that I felt absolute bored out of my melon. And if I could have walked out, I probably would have. And there's nothing stopping me from walking out, but I feel that if you're going to go pay to the cinema to go watch a film, you see to the fucking end of it. Seeing Harrison Ford run around like an old man that was fucking clueless in the best light and looked like he was lost and needed to go back to his nursing home was Harrison Ford in this film. I think there's a lot to hate about Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, but the biggest thing is, why was it made? As we saw the sequel, Yonksko, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and that was absolutely shite. And then they thought, no what, we'll dig him back out again wherever Harrison Ford's been hiding since he did the Star Wars, Force Awakens, and I think he did another movie after that. But I think since those things, he's just getting too old to be Indiana Jones now. And I think that if he was more of a, like, I don't know, just a professor, he's retired, he's out the way now, and he's going on one last adventure with somebody else being the main guy, or his son taking over, which they basically tease of being Shia LaBeouf in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, him taking over those reins, but he hasn't done that, and it was just Indiana Jones going around acting like he was still young again. The beginning of it started off pretty well, but then it just, like Bloodlines, it just fell apart like a cheap snakes and ladders board. Next up, I'm going through a lot of the worst ones. I don't know why the worst ones all clumped together, but Rise of the Beast for me wasn't bad, but at the same time it was bad. It was hard to describe. It was action-packed, thrilling in parts, and I'm going to say parts in such a small part, but the reason why this is poor and terrible is because it linked to G.I. Joe right at the end of the film, and that's what really sticks out in my mind as something so frustrating and aggravating about this movie, is that they're thinking of making more sequels and combining G.I. Joe and Transformers together, which I really do not get. And walking out of the cinema, me and my brother was just sort of going, really? Is that how this movie's going to end, with a potential link to G.I. Joe? And you're thinking, no. And for me, I think they've gone way too far with Transformers. I think I loved what they did with Bumblebee, but the fact that they didn't really use Bumblebee in this movie, he felt underutilized, and all the main characters did. I think this Transformers movie, from what I saw in the trailer, was very dull, very boring, very beige, and didn't do anything for me. I think there were some thrilling parts, but if you turn around and ask me now, okay, what was that movie about? I couldn't fucking tell you what the fucking movie was about. I think the Rise of the fucking Beast stuff was, even though that was the name of the movie, it failed to deliver massively, in my personal opinion. There was some good stuff about it, but a lot of it was fucking weak. Let's be honest. Up next, The Flash. Finally, something that was worth talking about. For me, this is near the top. And I'll tell you why. Because bringing back Michael Keaton as Batman is they have had to do for years. And now they've finally done it, and he still looked like a fucking Batman. To me, people, there's an argument for, is he the worst Batman? Is he the best Batman? For me, he is, in my opinion, because I haven't watched Christian Bale Batman yet. That is my job to do this year. But I think he's the best one that I've seen so far. That's what I would say. And to me, I think The Flash, I'm going to put in underrated, and I'll tell you why this is underrated. And that's simply for the fact that The Flash, for me, not a lot of people dissed it as such, but I didn't really expect this one to be good, but the actual film for itself will be overshadowed by whatever Ezra Miller politics has gone on in the DCU. And to me, yeah, I absolutely love The Flash. I think combining the Batmans and the Flash story was really good. And to me, if you haven't gone and seen The Flash yet, he's really entertaining and reminds me a little bit weaker than No Way Home, but of that No Way Home ilk, where you're getting a load of different people coming together from different universes and fighting on the same front and trying to stop General Zod, in which, in this universe, Superman has died as a kid, so they've not got that protection that their normal universe does have, because the Flash was able to travel back in time, but when he changes something from the past, it creates an alternate universe, and in doing so, he brings a world where Superman's dead. And that whole idea was great, but then having it being in Michael Keaton's world, and him doing something that basically destroyed the whole fucking world of General Zod being undefeatable, really, and showing that even all together they couldn't defeat General Zod without Superman, in which was really good. And then them keep reversing and creating the Dark Flash until he does the thing that he changed, which was bring his mother back because he tries saving her. And by doing that, he then goes into another universe, which was phenomenally good in George Clooney's, in which, to me, was a great film and won't be talked about nearly enough as it probably should be because of the stuff surrounding Ezra Miller, but I do like this film. Next up would have to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and where to put that one? For me, and I've kept the classic 2023 movies at bay simply for the fact of movies like this one, in which deserve to be in the classic column. Not the best movie of 2023, but an absolute gem of a movie. And to me, this was a great way of ending the Guardians franchise and one of the best superhero movies of the year. I wouldn't say it's the best, because there's one other yet that we haven't gone through, and that is obviously Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which we'll get onto in a few minutes. But I feel that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was amazing. Great villain, great backstory of Rocket. I love that, and the disbanding of the Guardians after so long being in the MCU and ending that story with the Guardians. I feel those really connected well, and I loved that sequel, in my opinion. And as an overall Guardians movie, I think it's the best one, in my opinion. A lot of people love the first one and the second one, but for me, the third one was the very best, the biggest challenge, the biggest threat, and to renew and to bring in these new characters to take over. And it was basically like James Gunn's curtain call as well in the MCU before he jumped over to the DCU properly. I think this was phenomenal. Next up, Scream 6. Where to put Scream 6? To me, if you've seen Scream 6, you'll know that you probably went into that movie thinking, another fucking Scream sequel, another Scream sequel. However, I was like, going out of the cinema like, this is like the best movie of 2023. But then we watched other movies, and I can't put it in best movie of 2023, so it has to go in classic as well. To me, as the best horror movie this year, it's got to be Scream 6. Scream 6 was the best horror movie of this year. The mystery element, there was nothing like this apart from Thanksgiving, in which Thanksgiving was basically a copy of I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream anyways. So the mystery element of Scream 6 was fantastic. I loved it. Everybody loves this type of film. There was nothing wrong with it, and I think this was just mind-blowing. And to me, I thought Scream was past it after Scream 3, but then you watch Scream 4, you think, oh, that was pretty good. Scream 5 knocks it up a notch, banging. The only weakness about this one didn't have Neve Campbell, and if it did have Neve Campbell in, I think we would be talking about one of the greatest horror movies of all time. But I think that was the only poor thing in there, not having that main character in there for just stupid reasons. And I think in Scream 7, when they do that eventually, because they will, I think they've got to reintroduce that character and either kill that legacy character off, which would be very, very smart and very, very good, or do something with that character again. But no, I love that. Courtney Cox was great in there. Everybody, Jenna Ortega, everything worked wonders, and I love that sequel. But I do think that one as well has run its course, in my opinion. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. For me, there is an argument for best movie of the year. Clearly there's an argument for that, but I think this is also a classic. It is slightly better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and this is in that conversation for one of the best Spider-Man movies of all time. It was that good. But I want to see where they're going to go in Part 2. But like many other franchises, we'll see and find out that Part 1 is normally better than Part 2 because of that ending. And the thing of finding out his uncle was Prowler and everything like that, that was great. And it was like, the thing is with the Spider-Verse movies, it's like playing the Spider-Man game on the PS4. It is really like that. It is really like watching that play out and seeing all these different Spider-Man in different universes. I love watching these films, and to me, I think it delivered, and it was hard to top what the original one did. And it went, no, fuck that. and did. I love that. I love that Spider-Man movie, and I do think that it was a really, really good sequel, and I can't wait for the next one that comes out. I don't know if it's going to be this year due to the writer strikes and stuff, but if it is, I will definitely be going to go see that in 2024. Last but not least, Oppenheimer is the best movie of the year. And to me, do I need to explain that? Because I don't think I do, because that is one of the greatest movies we've seen in a long time that just stands alone on top of everything else. Christopher Nolan's movie was fantastic. Cillian Murphy was fantastic. Everything just came together. One of the biggest array of casting going, Robert Downey Jr. and a load of other different people that you could list off, and you still wouldn't be able to name everybody that's in that film. It was great. One of the greatest films we've seen in a long time. So that is the rankings then, folks. Hope you've enjoyed this video, because I've enjoyed really going through my 2023 movies that I've watched this year and giving them a ranking. If you enjoy that sort of thing also, and you want to get involved in our rankings as well, send those to Instagram on RNR2022, I think. DM me those and let me know your particular opinions on these rankings, and get your own rankings in there as well, because I absolutely love hearing other people's opinions on what they think of the 2023 movies, because not everybody will agree, not everybody will say the same as you, not everybody will have the same ranking sheets and be singing off the same hymn sheet. So send those to me and DM those to me on Instagram, or comment them down below with your categories listed out. That would be great, thanks. And also, if you haven't already, hit that like button, as we want to get to, I don't know, 50 likes on this video, and you guys can help us, you know that. And hit that subscribe button, as it would really help the channel grow. And I shall see you guys in the next one. Laters.